This is in reference to Dr. Paul Krugman's article on Friday, January 2nd, 2015, Twin Peaks Planet. And Dr. Krugman goes into the fact that, of course, the wealth on top has gone up. It has gone up consistently for the last 30 years. It is now concentrated into a very, very small number of people. And this is completely worldwide. And that the other peak, that would be one peak, the other peak is that there is an emerging middle class, let's just say, so to speak, in two of the burgeoning economies, which would be China and India. And of course, how does that money stay at the top? Well, we know how it stays at the top, and it has a lot to do with what Dr. Krugman refers to as elite priorities. Elite priorities is, keep the currency in line, keep the debt down. All right. Why do you need to keep the debt down? So that the value of their money will go up, and that they won't lose any money. There's a lot to that, but let's just say that the elite people have the money and the wherewithal, and Dr. Krugman is not the only one. Robert Reich has talked about this a lot. Is that they have the money to buy the elections. So what are they doing with the money at the top in terms of what they're trying to do? Well, they're basically stealing it from the middle class and the lower middle class. And how are they stealing it? Well, they're decreasing wages, they're crushing unions, they're decreasing benefits. They're doing all of that to the middle class, especially in the United States. Even though he's talking about the worldwide, Dr. Krugman, let's just keep this level to the United States. Wages have been down for almost 40 years. Wages have not gone up significantly since about the mid-1970s. And that has been going on, and of course it's been killing since Reagan came in. And at one point in time, unions had a fair amount of the marketplace, about 30%, and that affected, or 25%, and that affected about 50% of the workers, because if unions were getting that much, then other people who are not in union needed to get pretty good wages too, and they might be going out for unions. But of course, the elite priorities have crushed all that. The unions have been crushed. We've kept the wages down, and then they've rifled all that money away. And, here's the big thing about all of that. So you have the elite who want it, and then you have some emerging markets, China and India, where there's a middle class. That leaves a lot in the rest of the world. And I'm speaking about the United States. That middle class is getting crushed here in the United States. Yes, they have some money, a lot more than the poor, but in terms of their upward mobility, in terms of job mobility, in terms of moving up wealth-wise, no, that hasn't happened much at all, especially in the last couple of years. Now, Obama wants to help. He gives us some lip service. I think that Dr. Krugman indicates that possibly he is scared to be challenged as being irresponsible because he won't take on the debt, because those voices are very loud. And of course, that's all the Republicans have been talking about since about 2009. Oh, we can't have the debt increase. We have to cut, entitlements. We have to cut all this other kind of stuff. And remember, entitlements are things that people have paid into so that they can get the benefit of. But again, they just want to make these vast, wild-eyed claims. Very irresponsible. Now, one of the things that's been going on in Europe is that the voices of the oppressed are being spoken by, let's just say, people who are much further on the leftist side or much further on the rightist side, and that he's not saying this is a precursor, but the people's frustration with their government, people's frustration with their economic levels, people's frustration with the uncertainty, people frustrated with the fact that there's so much wealth at the top, is put them in a position that they will now listen to these organizations, that basically want to overthrow the government, etc. He mentioned the one in Greece, which he thinks is a responsible one because they want to get out of the burden that they're in, and it's going to cause a lot of trouble. He referred to Brussels, but it's basically because Germany doesn't want them just wants them to pay down the debt to suffer for austerity for the next 10 or 15 years. And Greece says, no, we want to get out of that. And what's going to happen, I don't really know. But he did indicate that this is what was going on in the late 1920s and the early 1930s. Is, you know, there were these far cries from these, and of course the results of that weren't that good. And he's not indicating that that is what is happening, going to happen this time around, but he is indicating that we need to be aware of that. And that these twin peaks, you know, especially in the fact that in the United States, wages have not gone up at all. It could be a very, very telling sign of what may happen in the future. And again, I would like to indicate that a lot of this here in the United States is due to our friends on the Republican side who have not done anything to increase wages, not done anything to increase benefits, not done anything to support unions in any way, shape, or form. They have done everything to crush all of these types of things, and they have done everything to keep the middle class from moving up and to provide the services that we need for all of Americans. This needs to stop.